Was there a moment that you thought, I need to do art about this world, this planet that we're living in?
Definitely, and that's when I was working in 2015 on a piece called Gardens of the Anthropocene. This was a, excuse me, this was a commission from the Seattle Art Museum for their Olympic Sculpture Park, which is directly on the Puget Sound, and you're looking across the water. It's sort of on a slope, and you're looking across the water to these beautiful snow-covered mountains of the Olympic Peninsula. And so I was doing a augmented reality installation that covered the whole park, which was kind of a lot of space. And to do it, I thought I'd been hearing more and more about in 2015 about climate change is starting to get serious and we should really pay attention to it. So I thought that when global warming really hits Seattle, that the sea level will rise and start flooding this park, and started thinking about what would it take for plants to survive those changes, not just the seawater level, but also the change in rain and drought patterns, etc. And I made contact with a couple of climate scientists at the University of Washington, and talked to them, and they pointed me to some studies that said, well, the climate of Seattle is going to be more like the climate of Northern California. That's basically sort of the climate zones are moving northward. And then there were charts showing what would be the scenario if we kept on the course we were on, or if we managed to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, or if we accelerated it, which is what we're doing now with a couple of wars and a U.S. president who has stopped all sustainability efforts, etc. So I got to work on that, and there were some indications of which plants could survive things, and I had this idea several years before that about doing weird mutations. So I had bullwhip kelp, whose fronds are usually floating on the surface of the water, but I had them flying around like helicopters way above our head to sort of indicate the water rising and things like that. And I was looking through these studies and reading them, and this process went over maybe in total 6 months or so. So after about 3 months, I went back and looked at the studies and realized they had been updated. And what had been a kind of a worst case scenario last time I looked was now a probable scenario if we kept on going like we were. And looking at the temperature rise that they were talking about, I found this graph on a Wikipedia page. I've linked it from my Gardens of the Anthropocene website, and it said, well, okay, if we're really going to go for 3 degrees Celsius, or like 2 degrees Celsius of temperature rise, which is roughly 4 degrees Celsius, 4 degrees Fahrenheit of temperature rise. I took a look at the graph, and you know what? The Earth's temperature, the last time it was at that point was, I think it was about 3 million years ago. And Homo sapiens has only been around for 200,000, maybe a little bit more, but not even a million years. And then it became suddenly clear to me that the climate we're steering towards, the world we're steering towards, has never existed in the entire lifetime of the human species.
Right, not of the human species.
The entire
of the planet,
human species.
Yeah.
It's been like that before in the planet, but humans didn't exist at that point.
Right.
And the fact that the graphs of probable and worst case we're changing so quickly. I went back to the scientists and said, does this mean we are not on a linear course, but on an exponential course? That next year is not going to be a tiny bit worse, and the year after that a tiny bit worse than that, and a tiny bit and a tiny bit, but next year a lot worse, and the year after that a whole lot worse, and the third year after that a whole lot worse? And he said, yeah, exactly. That's why climate scientists are depressed, because we've known this for a long time, and we've tried to tell you for a long time, and no one listens. And it's very interesting, if I can say one last thing.
Yeah.